Whenever the daughter-in-law returned home, she would put on custom-made high heels and habitually stretch out an arm in front of her mother-in-law before reporting to her. Despite her anger, she hid her feelings and tried to please her mother-in-law, convincing herself that such behavior was normal in a wealthy family. However, she was unaware that her husband had been unfaithful. She wasn't just a decorative figure in the family, but a renowned lawyer. Although proud of her role as a wealthy family's daughter-in-law, she was puzzled when she noticed only 3 seats at the main table. Upon asking, the waiter explained that her mother-in-law had instructed it to be this way. Instead of showing anger, she calmly asked the waiter to arrange her seat. When her seat was finally added, she sighed in relief, but later realized that it had been removed again. She was shocked by her mother-in-law's cruelty. During a formal introduction of her grandson, she stepped forward, hoping to assert her presence, but her mother-in-law interrupted her. It was clear she wasn't respected. She felt like a ghost trailing behind. Even outsiders noticed how she was completely ignored. Her mother, who owned a small restaurant, believed her daughter was living a happy life, but the daughter's grievances were evident in her teary eyes. Sensing her pain, her mother reminded her, "As long as you are happy, I will be happy too." These words later became key. Soon after, she returned to her in-laws' home and greeted her mother-in-law, but her mother-in-law was displeased, commenting on a smell. "You went back to your parents' house, didn't you? How many times have I told you to take a shower before coming back here?" Unable to hold back her frustration, she asked her husband to talk to his mother about the matter. However, instead of understanding, her husband criticized her, saying, "Is it so hard to take a shower?" He then treated her like a maid, instructing her to clean up. This so-called noble life she had once been proud of was nothing more than the operation of a well-known law firm. This woman didn't know her husband's actions would get even worse. The husband's anger eventually uncontrollable. Predictably, she was no match for her husband and ended up being beaten again. This clearly wasn't the first time. Finally fed up, she filed for divorce. However, her husband hired the best defense lawyer. Initially, the law firm was reluctant to take the case, as the odds of winning were low, and helping someone like him felt undeserving. But as the firm's chairperson, her mother-in-law offered a grand incentive, her daughter-in-law, stating, "If you win this case, I'll give you the vacant director position." The mother-in-law's cunningness wasn't ordinary. Even her son questioned, "Mom, are you serious about this?" Yet the wife firmly believed the promise and began preparing thoroughly to win the case. When the wife presented her medical report as evidence of domestic abuse, the defense was ready, presenting similar claims that the husband was also a victim of violence. The case shifted focus, as the argument became about emotional conflicts rather than domestic abuse. Due to insufficient evidence, the court postponed its final judgment. Shortly after returning to work, the wife's assistant brought shocking news. Her husband was secretly gay. This was something even she hadn't known. It suddenly explained his emotional distance and his fiery insistence on child custody during the trial. The wife grew emotional in court, revealing that she had undergone multiple IVF treatments to conceive their child. If her husband's secret were to be revealed, his case would be doomed. During a firm meeting, her assistant overheard the smug lawyer, Mr. Ma, discussing the vacant director position. When asked about it, the assistant confirmed that the position had indeed gone to Mr. Ma. Furious, the wife confronted her mother-in-law, saying, "Didn't you promise the director role to me? Are your words meaningless?" Her mother-in-law shot back, "Did you marry into my family with such ambition in mind?" Shocked and feeling betrayed, the wife finally declared, "From now on, I'll live my life my own way." Sarah had anticipated her rebellion and was ready for it. Pretending to make a phone call in the restroom, Sarah intentionally mentioned, "Don't let his wife find out he's gay. There's no need to go through this divorce trial. Custody, property, and everything else will go to the wife anyway." This was clearly meant to be overheard. The wife was stunned and confronted Sarah. "Is my husband really gay? How do you know?" Back in court, the husband, cornered and desperate, couldn't deny the accusations. Though she lost the case, she appeared oddly satisfied, but her troubles were far from over. Moments later, officers approached Sarah and she looked stunned. "What do you mean I'm being arrested?" The wife could never have imagined that her husband and mother-in-law would conspire to frame her and send her to prison. Worse, She didn't know that 10 days earlier, her mother-in-law had already chosen a replacement for her, a person she claimed would help her son. By the time she was notified of the consequences, it was too late. The news was already broadcasting a scandal involving a wealthy family's fraudulent divorce to illegally send their child to study abroad, a serious crime. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the wife confronted her mother-in-law, asking if she had secretly filed any documents. Her mother-in-law calmly replied, "How else would your son have the opportunity to study abroad?" Sarah immediately suspected something was wrong. The wife pleaded with her husband to find a solution, fearing imprisonment. But her husband reassured her nonchalantly, "At least not the whole family is going to jail. Besides, our firm is influential. They'll find a way to help." Later, when the wife, now in prison, saw her husband, she thought he'd come to defend her. Instead, he told her to be patient, saying, "It's just a few years. You'll be out soon." Her husband then revealed his true intentions. He planned to marry the daughter of a prominent judicial commissioner. "This is for the benefit of our law firm," he added coldly. The wife finally realized she had been nothing but a stepping stone for him. Determined, she printed out a picture of her husband, pasted it on a punching bag, and began training, vowing to take revenge after her release. Meanwhile, her husband wasted no time, hosting a grand engagement party. Unexpectedly, a woman confronted him, furious that he had promised to divorce his wife and marry her instead. That same night, the woman was found dead in a pool of blood. The woman's grandfather publicly declared her death wasn't a suicide and demanded the prosecutor's office reinvestigate. Prosecutor Dong, who had seen the woman at the engagement party the night before, was intrigued by the case as news of her mysterious death spread. A waitress at the party came forward, revealing she had witnessed something suspicious. She had accidentally recorded a video of the woman confronting the husband, threatening to expose their relationship if he didn't call off his engagement. The video also captured the husband ordering his men to clean it up. That very night, the woman died. The waitress shared her suspicions with the imprisoned wife's mother. Her daughter's wrongful imprisonment was likely orchestrated by her son-in-law. Desperate to save her daughter, she sought out Prosecutor Dong, hoping he could uncover the truth. However, the son-in-law spotted the mother-in-law visiting the prosecutor's office. Sensing danger, he pretended to call her, asking what she was doing. Nervously, she lied, saying she was inquiring about her daughter's case. Relieved when he left, she attempted to contact Prosecutor Dong. But before she could meet him, a man posing as the prosecutor's assistant led her away. Unbeknownst to her, the real Prosecutor Dong had passed her in the hallway. Meanwhile, the son-in-law arranged her funeral, presenting himself as a caring figure. When the imprisoned wife requested to see her son and allow her to bid farewell, her request was denied. The wife, furious but determined, realized her ex-husband would never bring their son to visit her in prison. After all, this man had already framed her, divorced her in secret, and married a wealthy socialite. Despite her anger, she kept her resolve. One day, a prison official asked if she would be willing to donate her liver to someone in need. If she agreed, she could apply for early release. Desperate to leave prison, she agreed, unaware that saving this person would significantly impact her future. Upon her early release, she vowed to rebuild her life. Unexpectedly, she encountered a former client, a once penniless housewife she had helped win a critical legal case. That woman had since become a wealthy socialite and felt indebted to her. She proposed an audacious plan. They would open a law firm that specialized in helping women fight against abusive husbands. Though the wife hesitated, knowing lawyers couldn't return to practice for 5 years after being released from prison, the wealthy woman reassured her, promising to find a partner lawyer. Together, they began setting up the firm. Meanwhile, the ex-husband enjoyed his new life, basking in the benefits of his wealthy father-in-law's influence. He remained oblivious to the fact that his ex-wife had been released and was plotting her comeback. In a different case, a prominent female broadcaster faced career ruin when a colleague accused her of misconduct. Despite her efforts to defend herself, surveillance footage appeared to support the allegations. The scandal led to her immediate dismissal and widespread public condemnation. Her husband's infidelity and legal battles with his mistress only added fuel to the fire. Desperate, the broadcaster's wife sought help from Sarah, a lawyer known for her expertise in divorce cases. Sarah agreed to help, but sensed there was more to the story. In the midst of the case, tragedy nearly struck when the broadcaster's teenage daughter attempted suicide due to the public humiliation her family faced. Sarah, arriving just in time, managed to save the girl, whose desperate grip on life revealed her inner struggle. Upon returning to the office, Sarah learned that the broadcaster's husband had hired her ex-husband's firm to represent him. Her colleagues advised her against taking the case, knowing it would pit her directly against her ex-husband. But Sarah accepted, signaling the start of a direct battle with her ex. The husband, hearing of Sarah's involvement, grew anxious. He knew her capabilities and feared the strength of her case. In a desperate move, he orchestrated an attack on the broadcaster, framing her as the instigator of the earlier misconduct scandal. Media coverage quickly spun the narrative, portraying the broadcaster as a victim of baseless accusations. Sarah, however, recognized the manipulation and knew it would be much harder to win the divorce case if public opinion turned in the husband's favor. Suddenly, an unidentified object in the news turned the situation around. The drone footage could prove everything. Soon, they located the drone, and the surveillance footage revealed that the broadcaster never entered the gate, proving the man lied. But then, where did his injuries come from? To make the man confess, they devised a cunning plan. Unaware of the trap, the man was led into their setup. By the time he realized something was off, it was too late. He was forced onto a rooftop slope to trigger her survival instincts, and in an instant, he leaped. This was exactly what they wanted to prove. Both parties' lawyers met shortly after. A recording was presented, proving that the case didn't even need to go to trial. If it had, the man would likely have faced fraud charges and imprisonment. Meanwhile, the freed wife left with her daughter, grateful for a law firm dedicated to helping women. Sarah didn't expect her first case after getting out of prison to go so smoothly, but she was utterly shocked when her next client turned out to be her ex-husband's current wife. Everyone present panted. After all, Sarah's suffering was largely due to this couple. However, the woman scoffed, saying, "If I had known your husband was this kind of person, do you think I'd have married him?" Sarah replied, "Given my situation, isn't it inappropriate for me to handle your divorce case?" The woman then revealed that she had recently discovered that her husband had framed Sarah to send her to prison, just so he could marry her. She added that the marriage was politically motivated, arranged by her father, but now her husband's true colors were showing. He had implicated her father in a corruption scandal, leading to an investigation and arrest. The woman's mother-in-law began pressuring her to leave the house, demanding she divorce and leave empty-handed. Shocked by their audacity, the woman reminded them of the help her family had provided, vowing not to let them discard her so easily. Her husband, however, resorted to underhanded methods. He presented a compromising video to the woman, claiming it proved infidelity, even though she denied ever meeting the man in the video after marriage. Her husband refused to believe her, using this as leverage to force her out of the marriage. Desperate, the woman approached Sarah for help with her divorce case. Soon after, the husband learned of this meeting. Feeling threatened, he ordered his men to bring his wife back, but his men reported that Sarah had already taken the case, and attempts to contact his wife went unanswered. Meanwhile, Sarah and her team began strategizing. During a brief handoff to a defense lawyer, Sarah's client was abducted. When Sarah confronted the abductors, they mocked her for her father's incompetence and revealed they were acting under her husband's orders to bring her back for a divorce. Just then, a car rear-ended theirs. It was Sarah's associate, who forced the kidnappers to stop and rescued her. On the husband's side, things took a chaotic turn. Furious at his men's failure, he warned them about the consequences of provoking his ex-wife. To resolve the issue quickly, he decided to stage a dramatic scene with his current wife. The crowd demanded his withdrawal from the election, citing his father-in-law's corruption scandal. However, the man responded with a single piercing glance. Suddenly, someone in the crowd removed their earpiece, pulled out a knife. The wife was confused about what her husband meant by asking her to cooperate fully. Suddenly, a man emerged from the crowd, initially intending to assassinate her. However, her husband stepped in front of her and took a deep slash. Everyone rushed forward to help, but the wife was terrified, retreating in shock. She couldn't believe her husband would go so far, staging a self-inflicted injury to win public sympathy, even as he bled. He muttered, "Is my wife okay?" Remembering his earlier request to play along, the wife pretended to comfort him. This act restored her husband's image as a caring family man. During his campaign speech, he publicly declared, "Although my father-in-law is a congressman, everyone is equal under the law. I won't favor him, but I also won't abandon my wife." The wife finally realized her husband's true intentions. He was discarding her after using her to bolster his candidacy. He was a manipulative opportunist, expertly packaging himself and making false promises to the public, such as pledging to rebuild your dream homes, if elected. Then, his ex-wife appeared, armed with evidence of his misdeeds. She exposed how he had kidnapped her just days earlier, discarded people once they were no longer useful, and even coerced his current wife into a divorce. "Does someone like this deserve to run for office?" she asked. Shaken, the husband quietly ordered his assistant to remove his ex-wife, but the damage was done. Within just a minute of live-streamed chaos, public opinion turned against him. With the election looming, he tried to spin the narrative by holding a press conference, claiming to be a victim of harassment by his ex-wife. He praised his current wife as his steadfast supporter. Reporters, however, asked his wife to speak on camera. What followed utterly destroyed him. She revealed his attempts to force her into a divorce, his botched kidnapping of his ex-wife, and his elaborate lies to manipulate the public. She also presented evidence of his wrongdoings, a plan she had coordinated with his ex-wife to ensure his downfall. With both women uniting against him, his reputation was destroyed. He lost the election, and the media hounded him with questions about whether he would discard his wife now that she was no longer useful. Overwhelmed, he fled the scene. His mother ridiculed him for being so incapable that his career was ruined by 2 women. Enraged by the humiliation, he lashed out in desperation, his downfall complete. Before starting her car each day, Sarah would look at a photo of her son, though she no longer knew what he looked like. This daily ritual fueled her determination to get him back. Her ex-husband's scorn only deepened after his current wife and Sarah teamed up to destroy his political campaign. While Sarah had not received anything in her initial divorce settlement, seeing the current wife take her revenge by dividing his wealth gave Sarah a sense of satisfaction. She even advised the current wife to let go of such a toxic household. Sarah received an unwelcome visit from her ex-mother-in-law, who stormed into her home and slapped her. Though furious and tempted to retaliate, Sarah held back, knowing her son was still in their hands. Fortunately, the current wife had given Sarah critical information, her son's location abroad, and details of her ex-husband's activities. With this, Sarah began planning to exploit his weaknesses to win her son back. The mother-in-law mocked Sarah, saying, "A woman with a prison record will never be wanted by anyone." Shortly after, Sarah received a call from her ex-husband, arranging a video call with their son later that evening. The meeting place was one they had once dreamed of developing together. But when she arrived, it became clear her ex-husband had no intention of letting her speak to their son. Instead, he taunted her by making a call to their son in front of her, leveraging it as a way to test her desperation. Tensions flared. Sarah lashed out, calling him a human scum. Infuriated, he grabbed her by the neck, choking her until his men intervened and pulled him away. Claiming he was letting her off the hook, he locked her inside the room with chains, saying she needed to reflect on her actions. However, a violent storm caused the ruined building to catch fire. Trapped, Sarah panicked as the flames consumed the space. Meanwhile, her ex-husband, now calmer, ordered his men to circle back and release her. But as they approached, they noticed a fire truck heading toward the site. He ordered his driver to turn back immediately, unaware that someone else had already arrived at the scene. And this was one step ahead of her to rescue Sarah. And for some reason, he felt sad. A brother and sister always bring a photo of their late mother to save her a seat whenever they go out to eat. Their stepmother, with remarkable patience, tolerates this sentimental gesture. Although annoyed, the siblings know that their stepmother is the only person who truly cares for them. Perhaps because she cannot have children of her own, the stepmother is especially tender toward them. When the siblings learn their father is considering divorcing their stepmother, they worry she will leave them. To reassure them, the stepmother firmly declares, "No matter what happens, I will never leave you." But their father, relentless in his demands, continues to push for a divorce. The wife, frustrated, warns him not to act recklessly, especially with his company about to go public. Afraid her husband might fall deeper into trouble, the wife seeks out a legendary lawyer, Sarah. Known for her unmatched skill in handling divorce cases, Sarah agrees to help, seeing this as an opportunity to gain a powerful ally to deal with her own challenges. Sarah discovers that the husband of a member of parliament was brainwashed by a pastor into filing for divorce. To solve this, they decide to expose the pastor. They infiltrate his congregation disguised as followers, secretly filming everything. During a dramatic healing session, the pastor performs a bizarre ritual, claiming to remove cancer from a patient by pulling out a mysterious mass. The crowd erupts in belief, convinced of his divine powers. To uncover the truth, one team member sneaks into the pastor's backstage area and finds the cancer was pre-planted. However, just as they gather evidence, someone approaches. Quick thinking, an accomplice outside pretends to be blind and alerts the team, allowing them to escape unnoticed. They present the video to the husband, hoping he'll see the pastor as a fraud. But the husband, stubbornly devoted to the pastor, accuses them of fabricating the evidence. In an unexpected twist, the husband tells the pastor someone is trying to frame him. The pastor responds by manipulating him further, claiming his birth chart conflicts with his wife's, hindering his success. He urges him to finalize the divorce. At the same time, their child falls ill. The father forcibly takes the child to the pastor, ignoring his weakened state. The mother intervenes and gives the child proper medication, but the boy reveals in a weak voice that his father had taken away his pills. When confronted, the father defends his actions, saying, "The pastor told me the medicine clouds the mind. His blessings will cure him." He even adds insultingly, "Besides, that child isn't even yours." This shocking statement strengthens the wife's resolve. Sarah devises a risky but ingenious plan. Since her husband trusted the pastor so much, they decided to target the pastor's loyal disciple to uncover his secrets and force him to cooperate. Between prison and acting, the disciple naturally chose the latter. Then, the pastor's loyal disciple secretly added a small amount of sleeping pill. After an unknown amount of time, the pastor was suddenly awakened by someone. To his confusion, a prosecutor appeared before him and accused him of using supernatural powers to kill someone. He immediately denied the claim, insisting he had no such powers. To make the accusation more convincing, the disciple pretended to be arrested as well. Together, they seemingly sought a way to escape, but their true goal was to provoke the pastor into exposing evidence himself. Sure enough, the pastor, recalling that their so-called sacred substance was just cow's blood. At that moment, the seemingly sealed room was opened, revealing a group of believers outside. The pastor's days of glory were over. His disgrace quickly became public, and the wife seized the opportunity to strike back. She invited reporters and publicly revealed that her husband was a blind follower who had become so obsessed that he refused to take their critically ill child to the hospital. To protect her 2 children from her fanatical husband, she solemnly filed for divorce and eventually gained custody of the kids. To thank Sarah for her help, the congressman invited her to be his secretary, stating that working alongside a powerful figure was as honorable as being an imperial guard in ancient times. Meanwhile, the ex-husband approached Sarah, seeking her help. Upon discovering that she had aligned herself with such a powerful figure, he began scheming. Sarah was repeatedly harassed by her ex-husband, and even sent the flowers back to her mother-in-law. Seeing the shattered remains of the flowers, the ex-husband realized his former wife was not easy to intimidate. However, his mother kept berating her son, questioning if he had lost his mind to consider reconciliation. But the son advised his mother to be more forgiving, as Sarah was the key to influencing the congressman and ensuring the success of their law school. Coincidentally, it was Sarah's late mother's Memorial Day. Her ex-husband used this as an excuse to visit her, bringing offerings. While the group set up the memorial items, they also discussed the case of a poor woman named Miss Luo. Unbeknownst to them, the ex-husband overheard their conversation through the door. He quickly adjusted his demeanor and entered, claiming he was there to visit his mother-in-law, acting as though he was still part of the family. He even insisted he was visiting for the sake of the kid's grandmother. However, his companion quickly snatched his offerings and sent him away. Despite this, he overheard a critical detail about their investigation into Miss Luo's death. It turned out Miss Luo was his mistress. There seemed to be a witness to the events of that day. Attorney Dong commented that it was strange for someone as young as Sarah's mother-in-law to take her own life by jumping off a building. Sarah wanted to show Attorney Dong a photo of her mother, but the moment he glanced at it, he felt a sense of familiarity. Suddenly, he remembered surveillance footage from someone who had previously reported that Miss Luo's death was not a suicide. The figure in the video bore a resemblance to her mother. As Sarah took a closer look, she confirmed it was indeed her mother. Coincidentally, the footage was dated exactly 1 year prior to the day. Could it be that her mother did not commit suicide but was murdered? A girl must be cautious when making friends. She opened the curtains, only to find her boyfriend standing outside, watching her. As she prepared to call the police, her boyfriend revealed his true colors and threatened her, warning that calling the police again would result in consequences far worse than breaking her ribs. After he finally left, she barely had a moment to catch her breath before there was another knock at the door. Nervously, she peeked through the gap, only to see someone even more terrifying than her violent boyfriend. Though she had only encountered this man once before, she had witnessed his sinister methods firsthand. Panicking, she fled through the back door, but the sound of the door alerted the man. Coincidentally, her boyfriend was still lingering nearby. Mistaking the man for a stalker, her boyfriend attempted to attack him, only to be easily overpowered. Meanwhile, the girl managed to escape, but she wasn't the only one being sought. Seeing that the new person wasn't a threat, the girl instinctively tried to flee, only to be dragged away by her boyfriend, who assumed she had found a new lover and ignored him. But just then another person intervened. Her boyfriend mistook them for a rival and immediately attacked. Amid the chaos, the girl seized the chance to escape, only to collide with Sarah, who had been looking for her. Sarah explained that she was seeking answers about the girl's mother, who had been killed, and that the girl was the only witness. However, the girl refused to get involved. Sarah, suspecting she knew the truth, the girl had worked at her mother's restaurant and had a close relationship with her. Sarah showed her a photo of her and her mother, pleading for help. Moved, the girl agreed to meet and explained what had happened that day. While working a part-time job as a waitress, she had gone to the presidential suite for the first time and couldn't resist taking a photo. Suddenly, she heard the door open and quickly hid. To her shock, the person entering was Sarah's ex-husband. She accidentally left her phone recording the scene, capturing his mistress, Miss Luo, demanding marriage after 3 years of being together. When he refused, she threatened to expose his secrets. Enraged, he ordered his men to deal with her, and Miss Luo was found dead that same day. The girl had shown the video to Sarah's mother, intending to report it together. However, her mother disappeared after going to the restroom. She later saw Sarah's mother being taken into the ex-husband's car, with the secretary exiting. That night, Sarah's mother was killed. Terrified, the girl had deleted the video. Knowing she was the only witness, Lawyer Dong suggested moving her to a safe location. However, her boyfriend discovered her new address and confronted her. Seeing frequent calls from the lawyer on her phone, he grew suspicious of her loyalty. When the lawyer called again, the boyfriend lost control, violently pushing her aside and accusing her of betrayal. In a fit of rage, he strangled her to death. Sarah, devastated by the girl's tragic end, made a firm decision to bring justice for her mother and the girl. A woman who clearly hates her ex-husband decides to remarry him. However, the scumbag ex-husband also has his reasons for wanting to remarry. On the surface, the woman claims it's for their son, but in reality, it's to avenge her mother. The mother-in-law, not being naive, knows the woman's intentions and suggests that the couple share a room. The son feels awkward and explains that they've been apart for so long that they need an adjustment period. He also pleads with his mother to try getting along, at least for the sake of her grandson. To ease the tension, the mother-in-law orders the daughter-in-law to cut some fruit and bring it to her room. The daughter-in-law agrees but intentionally brings the fruit to her mother-in-law's study instead. When the mother-in-law sees the poorly peeled fruit, she frowns because this particular way of peeling is symbolic and private. She notices the daughter-in-law is deliberately provoking her. She pretends to explain that she hasn't peeled fruit for anyone in a long time and quickly takes the plate away. Later, when she returns home, she notices a pair of eye-catching sneakers and curiously asks the housekeeper if there were visitors. Learning that the shoes belong to her husband's team leader at the company, she becomes suspicious. She knows those shoes well. She waits in the car for the man to come out, snaps a photo, and focuses on the sneakers. To investigate further without arousing suspicion, she calls out to the man, pretending to confirm his identity. The man refers to her as young madam, and she feigns politeness while secretly planning her next move. Back at home, she compares a video of her mother being taken away with the photo of the man's shoes, confirming that he is the missing taxi driver, Kong. Strangely, after some surveillance, she discovers her mother-in-law has been secretly meeting this man, implying that her mother-in-law has been hiding something from her husband. Using her status as the young madam, she arranges a meeting with the driver and confronts him, showing him the surveillance footage and asking if he recognizes the person. The man denies it, but she doesn't believe him. She deliberately tells him that the person in the footage is someone they've been looking for and demands to know what happened to her mother. The driver, caught off guard, reveals his simple goal: to get $2 billion and leave. The husband pretends to agree, offering to arrange cash and a ticket for him to leave the country the next day. But as the driver waits for the payout, he underestimates the ruthlessness of the wealthy family. While waiting, his car is rammed by another vehicle. When he gets out to confront the driver, the person pretends to check his injuries but suddenly kidnaps him. Though he tries to resist, it's too late. What he doesn't realize is that they're actually trying to save him because there's much more at stake. Before going to bed, the husband always thoroughly checks his bedroom and repeatedly reminds himself to be cautious of his wife. He even personally inspects the house for any listening devices she might have planted, not even sparing the crevices. On the surface, he pretends to remain calm, but this charade continues until his wife shows him surveillance footage of her mother being taken away a year ago. Feigning curiosity, she asks him if the person in the video looks like his company's team leader. Feeling guilty, the husband glances at her briefly and then feigns ignorance, saying it doesn't seem like him. His wife had anticipated this response and deliberately tells him that she may just be too desperate to clear her mother's name. Her final remark only serves to push her husband further into a corner, making him think about how to destroy the evidence. Little does he know, this is precisely the effect his wife wants. Later that evening, the team leader's car arrives at a designated location. However, the next second, the car is crushed into a mangled wreck. Watching from a distance, the team leader's legs go weak. He knows without a doubt that this was the young master's attempt to silence him. When the wife questions the team leader about why her mother was killed, he instinctively denies involvement. He claims that on that day, he was simply following the young master's orders to take her mother away. But halfway through, the young master told him to get out of the car. However, when asked about Miss Luo's case, he panics and runs, trying to flee in a car. His nervousness causes him to crash, leaving him unconscious. Though he is saved in time and his life spared, he remains in a coma. The husband fails to eliminate the team leader, while the wife prepares her next move. She first asks her husband if he knows about the team leader's accident. The husband, not being naive, questions why the car involved belongs to someone under her command. He accuses her of scheming something, but she calmly counters by saying she suspects his mother and the team leader were responsible for her own mother's death. She explains that when she confronted the team leader, the mention of his mother caused her to flee, leading to the crash. This, she points out, the wife then goes to confront her mother-in-law, showing her surveillance footage. The mother-in-law immediately denies any involvement. The wife reveals that her investigation shows the team leader was her personal driver a year ago, and questions whether the mother-in-law ordered the abduction. However, this statement is as much for her husband to hear as it is for the mother-in-law, as she lacks concrete evidence. Although the mother-in-law brushes her off, the husband starts having his own suspicions. The wife's strategy seems to work. Later, the mother-in-law confronts her son, asking how the team leader ended up in the car accident. The son, in turn, questions whether she was the one who sent him. Despite the mother-in-law denying any reason to harm his mother-in-law, the son grows increasingly distrustful. Following this revelation, the mother-in-law orders her secretary to investigate her son's schedule from the day the wife's mother was killed. The secretary discovers that on that day, the son's team was driving the young master's car. Furthermore, records show that the young master's car was at the scene of the team leader's crash. Upon searching the son's room, the mother-in-law finds the team leader's phone, leaving her utterly baffled about her son's true intentions. She confronts him directly, only to find herself betrayed by the very person she raised. The mother suddenly realized she had raised an ungrateful wolf, and her son had fully made up his mind. He took out a phone he had prepared in advance and played evidence of his mother hiring someone to commit murder. The mother never expected her son to pull such a move. But the son angrily retorted, "Mom, you crossed the line first. Why did the police reveal that the team leader works under me?" The mother admitted she was only trying to warn him, saying, "If you end up in hell, I'm the only one who can pull you out." The son, however, kept reminding her, "You killed Miss Luo first, and I only helped you silence my mother-in-law." Furious, the mother accused her son of trying to make her take all the blame. Suddenly, the son noticed something, a surveillance camera in the room. The wife, watching the footage, realized her setup had been exposed. Pretending to know nothing, the mother and son cleared themselves of suspicion. They planned to expose the wife's flaws during dinner, but she had already prepared a counterattack. The husband became visibly angry, and the wife instructed the nanny to take the child to another room. Outside, police sirens blared, leaving the mother-in-law shocked. The wife dropped the pretense and asked which of them would go with the police. The husband was shocked by his wife's quick action. When the police moved to arrest the husband for suspected murder, he immediately pointed to his mother, saying, "It was her. She ordered it, not me." The mother was arrested, but the son wasn't at ease either. He blamed everything on his wife. Soon after, the wife received a call from her husband, claiming he was ready to surrender. But when she got into his car, he knocked her unconscious. Knowing his wife wouldn't let him go, especially after he killed her mother, he tied her up when she awoke. The husband forced her to record a message claiming her mother had suicidal habits. The wife refused and repeatedly asked him how her mother died. Losing patience, the husband admitted, "Yes, I pushed her. She wanted to report me." He left, thinking everything had gone smoothly. But as soon as he stepped out, he was surrounded. It turned out everything was part of his wife's elaborate plan. Seeing him still trying to play dumb, the wife couldn't hold back any longer. She punched him and revealed the evidence she had just recorded. As the police took him away, she declared, "Embrace every kind of life. The end." Thanks for watching. Like and drop a heart if you love the story.